Console gaming on the go was always the dream, but did you know that before the Nintendo Switch and the Steam Deck, that there was a Super Nintendo laptop in the works? If there's one thing Nintendo has mastered better than anyone else, it's handheld gaming. While other companies fumbled with short-lived portables, Nintendo turned gaming on the go into an art form. From the Game & Watch in 1980 to the Game Boys, DS's and Nintendo Switches, they've been cranking out hit after hit, leaving the competition in the dust for generations. Despite dominating handheld gaming, Nintendo has a bad habit, or, depending on how you look at it, a superpower of pushing underpowered, outdated tech way beyond its expiration date, and somehow it always works. The 1989 Game Boy, an 8-bit brick with a blurry pea green screen that you could barely see unless you were sitting under a stadium floodlight. Yet it absolutely crushed the competition. Nintendo may have built an entire empire on low-powered, long-lasting handhelds, but what if I told you that in 1993, someone had the audacity to try something far more advanced? A full-colour 16-bit handheld that could run actual Super Famicom cartridges. Not some cut-down port, not compromise, but a real portable Super Nintendo that you could slot your games into. It sounds like a concept too futuristic for the time, something you'd expect from a 1990s sci-fi movie rather than a real product, but no. This thing was not only in development, but a fully functioning prototype was even shown off at the Tokyo Game Show. So today, let's look at this weird tale. I am Lady Decade. Hit that subscribe button as we're about to dive into the story of the Bandai HET, the lost Super Nintendo laptop. Nintendo isn't just known for its legendary games and hardware, it's also got a death grip on its intellectual property. If there's one thing Nintendo loves more than selling consoles, it's obliterating anyone who dares touch their IPs. It doesn't matter if it's a fan project made out of love or a ROM site preserving classics that they refuse to re-release. If you so much as breathe on Mario without permission, expect a cease and desist letter faster than you can say, "It's a me." But here's the craziest part. Despite their authoritarian approach to software, a few years back Nintendo used to be shockingly relaxed about third-party companies making their own Nintendo-compatible hardware. It might sound completely unthinkable today, but for a time they actually allowed it. And what is even cooler is that Nintendo letting third-party companies mess with their hardware led to some truly bizarre creations. Take the Panasonic Q, for example, a GameCube/DVD player hybrid released exclusively in Japan. It looked sleek, it played GameCube discs and DVDs, and it was dead on arrival. Why? Because by 2001, if you wanted a game console that also played DVDs, you already owned a PlayStation 2. Then there was the Sharp Twin Famicom, which mashed together the Famicom and Famicom Disk System into one convenient if slightly redundant unit. Great idea, except by the time it launched, the disk system was already fading into irrelevance. And then there's my personal favourite, the Sharp Super Famicom TV, because apparently Nintendo once thought gaming straight from your TV was the future. To be fair, it still could be, they were just at least 40 years too early. What each of these devices has in common is that they were almost all exclusive to Japan, and as you can tell from this, third-party Nintendo consoles were far from one-offs. They were a part of a larger strategy. But why? Well, you see, Nintendo has never been a fan of financial risks, so instead of sinking money into expensive experimental hardware themselves, they have traditionally let third-party manufacturers take the hit, while Nintendo themselves reaped the rewards through game sales. Why build a GameCube DVD hybrid or a Super Famicom TV yourself when Sharp and Panasonic will happily do it for you? What was important for the Big N is that as long as Nintendo controlled the software, every console sold still lined their pockets. But of all the third-party collaborations Nintendo ever entertained, none were arguably as ambitious or as utterly bizarre as the Bandai HET. This wasn't just a variant of existing hardware, this was an attempt to make a portable Super Nintendo a reality. A gaming laptop, if you will. With gaming laptops, the Steam Deck and the tech that's paved the way, portable PC gaming is bigger than ever. Hardware can be pricey, but surprisingly, the software often isn't. Here's the crazy part. Using my affiliate links, you can score up to 90% off thousands of games, including top titles. Get 45% off Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, 18% off Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and deals on just about any game you can think of. I hope you manage to grab all of the games on your shopping list at bargain bucket prices, and enjoy the rest of this video. This picture shows the Bandai HET, short for Home Entertainment Terminal. This absolute unit of a device was supposed to make the dream of portable Super Nintendo gaming a reality, something I am sure many of you dreamed of back in the days of staring at 8-bit monochrome. Just imagine ditching your Game Boy back then. No more pea green screens and upgrading to a full-colour 16-bit beast that could play the very best Super Nintendo cartridges. No more Metroid 2 or Donkey Kong Land. In theory, you could be playing Super Metroid and Donkey Kong Country on the go. Sounds amazing, right? If anyone had the means to pull off a portable Super Nintendo, it was Bandai. After all, they weren't just some random third-party company, they were one of Japan's biggest toy manufacturers, who had made consoles themselves in the past, meaning they had the money, the experience, and the brand power to make a console work. Much like Nintendo themselves, Bandai started in toys, but as video games exploded in the 70s, they saw an opportunity. They dipped their toes in the industry with the Jack TV systems, a line of Pong-style home consoles, before setting their sights on something bigger. That came in 1979 with the Supervision 8000, one of Japan's first cartridge-based consoles. But while Bandai was ahead of the curve, they made one fatal mistake. They handled everything themselves without the adequate expertise to do so. This meant that only 7 games were ever released, all developed in-house, meaning no third-party support and 0 lasting appeal. The Supervision 8000 was dead in the water before the Famicom even arrived. By 1983, Nintendo flipped the gaming market on its head with the Famicom, and Bandai saw which way the wind was blowing. Instead of gambling on another doomed console, they pivoted to software, focusing on publishing games for Japan's hottest system. It was a genius move. Bandai already owned some of the biggest anime and toy licenses in Japan, so they churned out hit after hit. Dragon Ball, Kinnikuman, Gundam, Saint Seiya. If it had an anime, Bandai had a game for it, and with the Famicom's massive install base, their games flew off the shelves. This was a lucrative time for the company, and for a while, Bandai seemed content playing it safe. But by the early 90s, they were beginning to get ambitious again and would release weird console add-ons that could be stacked on both the Famicom and Super Famicom. I promise we will revisit both of these oddities again on this channel one day soon, but today it's this monstrosity that has our full attention. At the 1993 Tokyo Game Show, they unveiled something that looked less like a console and more like an experiment that had escaped a lab. The device they referred to as the Home Entertainment Terminal. As mentioned, this fully functional prototype promised to bring Super Nintendo gaming on the go. On paper, it was revolutionary, but in reality, well, let's just say it didn't quite go to plan. The HET was unlike anything else at the time. A laptop-shaped contraption with a built-in Super Famicom cartridge slot, its own controller, and a 4-inch screen. The idea? Not just the ability to be able to play your favourite 16-bit Nintendo games anywhere you wanted, but something more. Bandai wasn't content with just making a portable SNES. Oh no, they went full sci-fi with this thing. The HET wasn't just for gaming, it reportedly came with a TV tuner so you could watch live broadcasts on the go. And if that wasn't enough, Bandai wanted it to connect to CD-ROM drives, modems, and even printers. But the madness didn't stop there. Plans for the HET also included a morphing controller which could adapt its layout for different game genres, and a hydraulic-powered gaming chair because, apparently, Bandai thought gamers needed to feel every jump, hit, and explosion in full body motion. At the Tokyo Toy Show in 1993, Bandai showcased the HET with a bold vision for its future. We're about to see footage from the toy show which, when roughly translated, states the following. The main unit, the game's CPU section, is equipped with Nintendo's Super Famicom, which holds an overwhelming market share domestically. The modem unit allows text and images created on the screen to be sent and received using a telephone line, enabling clearer transmission of information compared to conventional media. This also enhances interaction with the system, making communication with friends even more engaging, so make sure to move your body and get fully immersed in the action. Yes, you heard that right, this thing had a built-in modem. It seems that Bandai wasn't just trying to make a portable Super Nintendo, they were trying to create an all-in-one entertainment and communication device. Gaming, TV, online messaging. It was an entire digital hub, all packed into a clunky, weird and wildly ambitious laptop-like console. For a device from 1993, it seemed the HET planned to do everything. Essentially, Bandai tried to make this crazy device a full-on gaming laptop before gaming laptops were even a thing. And while that sounds impressive, in practice, it was just about as practical as carrying a desktop PC in your backpack, and then, unsurprisingly, it vanished. Outside of the brief footage shown at the Tokyo Game Show, the HET dropped off the face of the earth. No retail units, no leaked prototypes, no confirmed sightings, and estimates suggest that as few as 1 and no more than 50 prototypes were ever produced, making it one of the rarest lost gaming relics in history. I don't know about you, but now I seriously want one. It's become one of gaming's great lost relics with zero clues as to where the prototype ended up. As for why this never made it to market, let's be honest, this thing came with more red flags than the People's Republic of China. For starters, this thing was massive. Calling it portable was generous at best. It was less take it on the go and more like drag it around like a suitcase. And then there's a battery life which, given the tech of the era, was probably diabolical. If the Game Gear and Atari Lynx struggled to last a few hours, imagine how fast this 16-bit monstrosity would drain its power supply. In the end, whatever killed the HET, whether it was the price, power, or something else, the practicality of this thing must have always been a bit questionable, no matter how alluring Super Nintendo games on the go were. Looking back at the handheld wars, it's almost laughable how underpowered the Game Boy was compared to its competition. The Atari Lynx and the Sega Game Gear had full colour screens, but what good is power if your system dies in 3 hours? The Game Boy didn't need colour, a backlight, or cutting-edge graphics. It won primarily for 2 reasons: cost effectiveness and battery life. And the Bandai HET? Yeah, this thing never stood a chance. While we can poke fun at this costly contraption, in many ways, at the very least, its ambitious design was ahead of its time. The idea of merging home console gaming with portability wouldn't truly become a reality until decades later with the Nintendo Switch. Its multifunctionality, offering media features, communication tools, and expanded connectivity foreshadowed innovations that Nintendo would later explore in the DS and 3DS era. Sure, some questions remain on how many people would have actually purchased one of these, but a more intriguing question to me remains: what happened to the working prototype that was shown off nearly 3 decades ago? Was it destroyed? Locked away in a forgotten corporate vault, or is it sitting in some former Bandai employee's garage, buried under a pile of old Gundam models and unopened Power Rangers toys? Stranger things have resurfaced before, so I wouldn't rule out this thing making a surprise reappearance one day. Until then, the Bandai HET remains lost to time, but if it ever does resurface, one thing is certain: It belongs in a museum. Don't forget that by using my affiliate links, you can score up to 90% off of thousands of games, including top titles. Get 45% off Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, 18% off Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and deals on just about any game you can think of. I hope you manage to grab all of the games on your shopping list at bargain bucket prices, but if you want to support what I do in a more personal way, access my cosplay library and more over on Patreon. See you all again soon.